introduce the Vice President, Kamala Harris.
When we think about the strength of our democracy, you know, I think that there's a duality to the nature of democracy. When it's intact, oh, it's so strong in terms of what it does to uphold and protect individual rights and freedoms. So strong in its nature. And it is very fragile. It will only be as strong as our willingness to fight for it. And I'll say, I think we all know this election is as much as anything about each of us deciding what kind of country we want to live in. It really is. It's about deciding whether we want to live in a country that prioritizes and values decency, democracy, freedom, liberty, rule of law, or not. I know that one of the best ways we're going to keep our firefighters safe is to have more firefighters, to be able to work on the job with you, to be able to do the work that is about putting the resources into what the communities need.
I think that, you know, there are a couple of events in history that, you know, transcend politics and are piercing. I think 9/11 is one of those issues that people remember, and I think January 6th is one of those issues. And I think, you know, Donald Trump being, you know, one of the first American presidents to not want to peacefully transition power, it's something that's in the minds of people.
Do you think it will be front and center, the first thing on voters' minds come November?
I think democracy will, and I don't necessarily think that, you know, for every single voter that is January 6th. I think that democracy can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people.
What are you doing to appeal to these voters who are going over to his side? Is it blowing your mind? Is there a specific plan or program that the campaign is running?
So I also don't believe that these voters are going over to Trump's side. Look, I think that black voters aren't monolithic whatsoever. And we have to do the work of communicating with them, which is why one of the first things that, you know, I wanted to get in place when we started this campaign was making sure that we communicated with them.
When we heard for 3 years that the border's closed and it's secure.
The border is closed. The border is secure.
And Mayorkas said it's closed, and 7.2 million people have come into where our big cities have no idea how to handle this. And then you hear from the administration
here's the thing.
that it's not their fault.
This is really important. This is really important, okay? The common sense position, and the position that, by the way, a lot of moderate Democrats and moderate Republicans would always say, the kinds of things that you hear at the Chamber of Commerce in Indiana, where I come from, is that there ought to be more legal immigration and less illegal immigration.
18% say the president's policies have benefited them economically. Even among women, 20% more say Trump's policies benefited them than Biden's. What do you attribute that to, and how do you fix that?
Well, you're right. When you look at the numbers across our economy, all-time highs in the stock market, record job creation, unemployment that hasn't been this low for this long since before I was born, you see so many good things happening that we want to tell the story for. And I'm one of those who definitely believes the president deserves more credit for those achievements.
This is January 2021 to January 2024. Over just a few years, overall costs up 20% almost, food prices skyrocketing, energy, those everyday items that are not your choice.
If your day-to-day living isn't tough enough right now, wait until you get to your day-to-day retirement. So overall, assets of the total retirement market, that stands at $35.7 trillion. That is down over 10% from $39.8 trillion back in 2021. And I just want to zoom in on your defined contribution plans. That's this blue right here. So these are your 401ks, your 403bs, your 457 plans, your federal employee thrift savings plans. Look, they're just kind of spinning the wheels right here, not making you money. And then I just want to go, before I go, I want to zoom in on the 401ks here. Those in particular have slipped and then stalled.
The average hourly earnings are now down 2.1% from where they were in January 21 when President Biden took over. The average American is getting hit hardest by this hot inflation number.
The New York Times Siena poll last weekend showed key parts of President Biden's 2020 coalition seemingly falling apart. He's losing support with young voters, women, black voters, and losing some of that support to Donald Trump. Why do you think Trump has gained support among some of these key voting blocs?
Well, first of all, I'm not sure that's accurate, but assuming that some of those things are occurring, it's not really a big surprise. As you know, because you're an expert in political science, there are tectonic shifts going on amongst the electorate.
Back in February of 2021, President Biden said Donald Trump should not be given the traditional intelligence briefings that were given to former presidents because, quote, what value is giving him an intelligence briefing? What impact does he have at all, other than the fact that he might slip and say something? Does the president still feel that way now that Donald Trump is on the way to becoming the Republican Party's nominee and would be entitled to the briefings that a party candidate would get?
I think the president's words stand today, as he stated them however long ago. I don't think his mind has changed on that. I just don't have anything to add.
Would you do anything to block him from getting these briefings later this year?
I don't have anything to add, but the president was very clear about how he felt about that, and I would say those comments certainly do stand today.
Question, is the president planning on talking to TikTok influencers on Friday after the State of the Union about his speech?
That's a good question. I don't have anything for you on that, on his schedule for tomorrow. Once we do, we certainly will share that.
Friday.
For Friday, pardon me, for Friday. As you know, he's going to be on the road on Friday. I don't have
anything. And if he does, you wouldn't see any contradiction between the fact that the president would be using a technology that he's urging Congress to...
Here's the thing, and I've been asked this question multiple times about TikTok and our use of TikTok. As it relates to the campaign, I know the campaign has created a TikTok account. I would let them speak to that. That is their strategy, would let them speak to that. And we've said this before. We are going to try to meet the American people where they are. We are. I mean, we're trying to reach everyone. The president is a president for all Americans, and so that's what we're trying to do there.
Even if it's a dangerous platform.
But it doesn't mean that we're not going to try to figure out how to protect our national security, right? That's what we're doing here. That's what you see in this bipartisan legislation that's being moved forward, that you heard from Jake about, that you're hearing from me about. Doesn't mean that we don't do the work to make sure that we protect Americans, and that's what we're going to do here.
What about the state of the president? That seems to be the issue that is really cropping up in these polls, John.
Well, look, I can't speak for the polling numbers. I can just tell you, speaking for the president, that he is 100% engaged in the job of being commander-in-chief and president of the United States. And again, through his leadership, all these domestic things have improved, as well as our footing on the world stage. This is a president who is actively engaged every single day. I've seen it for myself.
John, how has he never spoken to, and you know what, we did some reporting on this earlier today, not only Raul Ortiz, the former chief of the Border Patrol, but the current chief of the Border Patrol, Chief Owens, who you pointed out he did meet with in Brownsville, but from what we can find out, they had never spoken before that. How is that possible?
Well, the president's engaged with the DHS. He's engaged with leadership there.
But why not the Border Patrol?
He's engaged with the Border Patrol. Martha, he was just down there in Brownsville meeting and talking to those folks directly and hearing from them
he never met with
about the situation on the ground.
Or current chief. The current chief he just met, he's been president for 3 years, just met him the other day.
He again, is engaged with everybody at DHS, including the Border Patrol, down there at Brownsville, talking to them on the ground, hearing from them directly about what their concerns are.
Okay, but just to confirm that record, you're telling you they never met before Thursday, correct?
Look, I don't have the president's daily calendar with me in terms of like who he's met specifically with, but the idea that he's somehow disengaged from the Border Patrol just flies in the face of the facts.
If I may, the president, I noticed, had note cards at the border when he was doing his briefing there. He also had note cards last Friday with the Italian Prime Minister. Why does the president rely so heavily on note cards?
You're upset because the president has note cards? You're asking me a question about the president having note cards?
I'm asking why.
The president who has had probably one of the most successful first 3 years of an administration than any modern day president. He's done more in the first 3 years than most presidents who had 2 terms. You're asking me about note cards? I don't think that's. Wait, I'm not speaking to you right now, James. I'm talking to your friend over here, Ed. So thank you so much. But thank you so much for interjecting. Go ahead, Ed.
I was just asking why he relies so heavily on note cards.
I think what's important here and what the American people care about is how this president is delivering for them. And that's what he's doing. And that's what's the most important thing here.
Kujichagulia.